Hi there, my name is Justine. In this video, we're going to look at HTML. The learning outcomes for this video include what is HTML, how is an HTML document structured, what are elements / tags, what are element attributes. HTML in bracket hypertext markup language. So HTML stands for hypertext markup language. Is the most basic building block of the web. It defines the meaning and the structure of web content. Hypertext refers to the links that connect web pages to one another, either within a single website or between websites. The different terms used in HTML. While getting started with HTML, you'll likely encounter new and often strange terms. Over time, you'll become more familiar with all of them, but the three most common terms used in HTML are elements, tags, and attributes. So you're going to hear most of the time people talking about elements, tags, and then attributes when it comes to HTML. So what are HTML elements? HTML elements are designators that define the structure and content of objects within a page. Some of the more frequently used elements include multiple levels of headings identified as H1 up to H6. So there is H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. And paragraphs identified as the P element. The list goes on to include the anchor tag or the A tag, div, span, strong, title, audio, video, image, EM, among other elements. There are so many HTML elements. Elements are identified by the use of the less than and greater than angle brackets. So the moment you come across the greater than and then the less than angle bracket, just know you've come across an HTML element. Surrounding the element name, that's an element will look like this. So you're going to have the element name. For this case, we're having the P, the paragraph element, and the content inside, hello world, and then the closing paragraph element. So a combination of all these, we form what we call an element in HTML. So it's a combination of the opening tag, the content, and then the closing tag. So what does the opening tag do, or what does it mean? The opening tag consists of the name of the element, in this case P, wrapped in opening and closing angle brackets. This states where the element begins or starts to take effect, in this case where the paragraph begins. Then the closing tag, this is the same as the opening tag except that it includes a / before the element name. So the only difference between the opening and the closing tag is the slash. So the opening, this slash is the only difference between the opening and the closing tag. The opening tag marks the beginning of the element, so the closing tag probably marks the end of the, where the element ends to take effect, the end of the element. So this states where the element ends, in this case where the paragraph ends. Failing to add a closing tag is one of the standard beginner errors and can cause strange results. Yes, so don't ever forget to close off your elements because you get weird results in a browser when you try to open your HTML files. The content, this is the content of the element, which in this case is just text. The element, the opening tag, the closing tag, and the content comprise or make up the element. Elements can also have attributes. So attributes like the class attribute, the ID, are different attributes depending on what element. So an attribute is always placed in the opening tag and it will look like this. So for this case, our paragraph is having a class of para or the class attribute. Attributes contain extra information about the element that you don't want to appear in the actual content. Here the class attribute name and the para is the attribute value. The class attribute allows you to give elements a non-unique identifier that can be used to target it and any other element with the same class with the style information and other things. So we're going to look at more attributes, or we're going to see how attributes work effectively when it comes to CSS. An attribute should always have the following: a space between it and the element name, or the previous attribute if the element has more than one attribute. Yes, elements can have multiple attributes, but the space must always be there to separate the attributes, and there must be space between the element name and then the attribute name. If you don't put a space, you'll still get strange results. The attribute name followed by equal signs. Yes, when you have an attribute like class, you must follow it by equal signs. Then after you put the values, and the value has to be in quotes. The attribute value wrapped in opening and closing quotation marks. Yes, it must be in quotation marks, otherwise it will be invalid. Then now we have different types of elements. We have self-closing elements, we have block elements and inline elements. Not all elements consist of the closing and opening tags. Some elements simply receive their content or behavior from attributes within a single page. For example, the input, the BR, image, link, HR, among others. So you won't find all the elements having an opening and then the closing tag. Some are self-closing or empty elements. Then now we have the block elements. Every element has a default display value depending on what type of element. There are two display values, block and inline. Block level elements or the block element. A block level element always starts on a new line. They always take up for width available, stretches out left and right as far as it can. For example, the H1, the div, the P, the HR. So these block level elements will always appear on a new line. So you never have two H1s appearing on the same line. It can never happen. So the opposite of block line level elements is the inline elements. An inline element does not appear or start a new line. It only takes up as much width as necessary. For example, the strong, input, image, EM. So these ones can appear, so you can find multiple images appearing on the same line, which is not the case for block level elements like H1s. The structure of HTML. HTML documents are plain documents with an extension of .html. So HTML is just like a normal document. The only difference is that for it has a file name extension of code.html, just the way you have for Word document docs .dot, the for PowerPoint, PPT. For HTML, it's .html. All HTML documents have a required structure that includes the following declarations and elements: the doc type HTML, HTML head and body. The doc type declaration informs web browsers of which version of HTML is being used. And is placed at the beginning of the HTML document. Because we'll be using the latest version of HTML, our document type declaration is simply going to be doc type HTML. Following the document type declaration, the HTML element signifies the beginning of the document. Inside the HTML element, the head element identifies the top of the document, including any meta or company information about the page. The content inside the head is not displayed on the web page itself. Instead, it may include the title, which is displayed in the title bar in the browser window. Links to external files like CSS files, JavaScript, or any other beneficial metadata. All of the visible content within the web page will fall in the body. For example, the images, the headings, the sliders, the carousels, everything will be inside the body. A breakdown of a typical HTML document will look like this. So the whole of this was broken down into this. So this is how a normal HTML document should look like. HTML5, we shall have our doc type, then we shall have our mother element, the HTML, then we have the head. In between the head tag, we put our title, which will always display in the browser tab. Then inside the body is where we place all our content, the images, the headings, the paragraphs, the divs, everything. All the content for your website or for your web page is placed in between the opening and the closing body tag. That's it for this video. See you next time. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.